Campaigns are turning up the heat. New ads, new attacks. We're breaking it down with some heavy hitters coming up next.
More than 3,000 people forced to run from their homes.
Sees mayoral primary. Incumbent Mayor Adrian Fenty in the fight of his political life.
The whole purpose of a campaign is to get as many votes as humanly possible.
Challenger Vincent Gray trying to hold on to his momentum.
We want this to be a civil, orderly process.
Tonight, the drama builds and the pace intensifies as the race for D.C.'s mayor enters the home stretch. The final days of the campaign for D.C. mayor are getting ugly, and the candidates are taking jabs at each other as they sprint towards the finish line. Fox 5's Laura Evans is here now with more on the battle. Laura?
Yeah, Sean, we are 1 week away from Election Day, and with Council Chairman Vincent Gray way ahead in the polls right now, Adrian Fenty is doing everything he can to hold on to his seat. It appears now both are pulling out the stops, not just on the campaign trail, but also on the web.
Some people say Adrian Fenty has turned his back on district residents. As his former deputy chief of staff, I can say they're right.
A jab at Mayor Adrian Fenty with testimonials from former Fenty supporters and staffers front and center on his opponent Vince Gray's website.
Some people say Mayor Adrian Fenty is not inclusive. Well, as a former staffer and supporter, I couldn't agree more.
Meanwhile, a return punch from the mayor via YouTube on a comment Gray made in last week's debate here on Fox 5, saying the council chair refuses to admit to past mistakes.
What mistakes have you made as chairman of city council or serving on council?
Well, actually, I am very proud of the record.
I mean, the whole purpose of a campaign is to get as many votes as humanly possible. So, we're working hard, from sunrise to sundown to convince as many people to come over and support us. We know our opponents are doing the same thing.
Right now, it appears, though, Fenty may not have the votes if the polls are any indication. The incumbent did, however, pick up an endorsement Tuesday from the Washington Examiner, the editorial praising Fenty's record on schools, crime, and economic development. Perhaps proof of that economic development, a new 6-acre Anacostia waterfront park and marina. The stalled project being jump-started with new housing, retail, and office space. It's expected to open next year. Both candidates supported this project, and both were there for the ribbon cutting.
2, 3, cut.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
But with the campaign ever present on his mind, Gray wasn't just focused on this project. He also talked about the growing discord in the mayor's race. He's now asking to have police officers stationed at all polling places on Election Day.
I'm talking about everybody. I've said to my own people that, listen, we want you to do what you came there for, and that is to help promote our campaign, not interact negatively with other people.
And Mayor Fenty also said today he agrees that security should be at all polling stations. Meanwhile, the latest Washington Post poll shows Vincent Gray ahead of Mayor Fenty by 17% of likely voters. Brian.
All right, Laura Evans, live downstairs in the Satellite Center. We'll see you back up here in the studio in just a few minutes. Of course, the stakes for the Democratic primary are high. Whoever wins next Tuesday has a lock on the general election. There is no Republican challenger. We are joined tonight by two of the candidates' most outspoken supporters, Ron Moten and Marion Barry. Ron Moten is a community activist, co-founder of Peaceaholics. He supports Mayor Fenty. Marion Barry needs a little introduction. He's the Ward 8 councilman, served as D.C. mayor from 1979 to 1991. He's here to support Vincent Gray, although you may recall he endorsed Adrian Fenty for mayor back in 2006. Councilman Barry, I'd like to begin with you, if I could. In about 20 seconds, why should Vincent Gray be D.C.'s next mayor?
Well, first of all, let me say, you mentioned it. I was one of Adrian Fenty's most ardent supporters in 2006. I campaigned for him. He wooed me for 9 or 10 times, meetings, etc., promised me all kind of things for Southeast and East of the River, promised jobs and etc. He also promised us a clean government. He was not going to have this culture of corruption in his government. He also promised housing. He spent not hardly any money on that. So I'm here really speaking not for the Gray campaign. I cannot do that. I'm not representing Vincent Gray. He does very well representing himself. His supporters can do that. I do support him enthusiastically, known him for 35 years. But I'm not speaking. I'm speaking really as I saw on the television, former Fenty supporters. There were thousands of us who support Adrian Fenty. We thought he was our best hope. He was young, energetic, but we've been disappointed. We've been disgusted. And, when there was $50 million D.C. government, he didn't speak out on it.
All right, before we get into the details a little bit, I appreciate that. Let me bring in Ron Moten. I'll give you a little more than 20 seconds there. Why should Adrian Fenty be reelected?
Well, results. Adrian Fenty has made some mistakes, just like Marion Barry has made some mistakes. And I'm kind of surprised that Marion wouldn't agree to give somebody who's changed the city. And I quite have a different opinion than my icon, who I've loved, Marion Barry, when he says that things haven't changed in Ward 8. We have 4 new rec centers, 3 libraries, 1,000 units of permanent housing for the homeless, and you can take the last 4 mayors and combine them together, and they won't have 1,000 units of permanent housing for the homeless families in D.C. $42 million going to Anacostia Senior High School, a brand new gym in Ballou Senior High School, brand new library, brand new fields all over the city. Our children are happy. Our parents are happy. My son just graduated from Ballou Senior High School. Back in 2003, Marion Barry knows this. A guy was killed in Ballou, and you couldn't even walk the hallways of the school. Going to Ballou now, the staff is happy, the children are happy, and it just saddens me these misconceptions where we demonize this man who's made some mistakes, but Marion has made a lot of mistakes, and we forgave him.
All right, let me bring this up, since I didn't want to make this a referendum on you too, but you're kind of going down this path here, and in many voters' minds, you both represent the reservations voters have with the candidates you support. Councilman Barry, some viewers tell me you want to turn the clock back on progress. They fear Gray does too. And Ron Moten, other viewers are saying you're one of Fenty's friends with benefits on the payroll. So of course you support cronyism. Let me ask you, Ron, you and your organization, are you getting millions of dollars from Mayor Fenty and simply preserving your interests by campaigning for him here?
I'm glad that you say this. You know, I worked hard as a Washingtonian for 15 years, the last 15 years. 9 years, I was almost a bum on the streets. My grandmother always told me, why do you keep on working hard for this city and you get nothing in return? Mayor Fenty did not start supporting me. Anthony Williams started supporting me. We had our funding before he was the mayor from the great work that we did. I have letters with me right here today from Vincent Gray talking about the great work that my organization did. However, I left the organization last year, September of last year, because I was told that I couldn't speak out as a citizen and use my First Amendment rights for my views. So I left because my organization was being attacked. And it saddens me.
Well, it's still, I mean, Ron,
can we get in on this?
Sure, one second, council member. I just want to bring up the city paper today and quote them. They spotted you, Ron Moten, leaving the Office of Campaign Finance today, having to respond to whether your go-go concerts, your songs, that music video that you put out with Wale, a magazine, are breaking city election laws.
Well, definitely they're not breaking the laws, just like the laws that Vince Gray went in front of OCP. It was rules that he wasn't breaking the laws. I have the right to be a citizen, and a lot of things that those accusations came from Gray people who made false accusations of things that I didn't do.
All right, Marion Barry, step in here.
Well, I have to step in here because what we have here is a situation where the voters, the majority of the voters, are disgusted, don't think the city's headed in the right direction, even though the polls say something differently, where Adrian Fenty, with all the talk that Mr. Moten has done, and I supported Peaceaholics. I still, Ron and I are friends in the sense, we're not political friends anymore because of that. But the problem here is that what about the people? Adrian Fenty talked about recreation centers. What about jobs for the parents of the students, the kids who go to recreation centers? What about housing for the people, the 26,000 people on the thing? What about the minority business program? It was 45% a little before he got there. It's down to 30-some% in terms of minority, local, small business people. He has lost touch with the people. He manages by press conferences as opposed to managing. When the last time people in the city saw him in the neighborhood outside of a press conference?
Councilman Barry, let me just ask, Ron, let me just ask the councilman here. A lot of viewers are asking whether you think that you're supporting Vincent Gray because you think that an administration under him would look a lot like your old administrations.
Well, first of all...
And is that a good thing?
Well, first of all, I don't buy that. I had an outstanding government. I had a personal problem, sure. But in terms of the work of the government, everybody would tell you that the transformation of downtown, we had 40,000 employees for 16 years, only had about 10 of them to do something wrong. I don't buy that. Vincent Gray and I have a forward vision for the city. I'm one of the most progressive council members on the council. Vincent Gray is one of the most progressive council chairs in America. And so that's just a campaign rhetoric about throwing the clock back.
Let's move on.
We're going forward.
Let's talk about
bring
crime.
this city together.
Can I
And Ron, you'll appreciate this. We're going to talk about crime here. In fact, we asked the candidates themselves on a debate here on Fox 5. Let's take a listen.
I support them wholeheartedly because they are Chief Lanier's crime-fighting strategies.
I find it amazing that the chief executive takes credit for those things that have gone well and then places the blame on those who work for him. The reality is that whatever crime-fighting strategies are exercised in the District of Columbia are the responsibility of the mayor.
Right, isn't this what voters are talking about? Fenty both praises his police chief and then throws her under the bus for her strategies, and we all know that's a reference to the recent court order throwing some of them out.
Well, first of all, I don't want to get caught up back and forth about what's right and wrong or throwing somebody under the bus. We have the lowest, we're on a pace that had the lowest murder rate since 1966, under 100. And the strategies have worked using people like us and other organizations along with the chief. But I find it ironic that we talk about people giving cronies money and things like that when Vince Gray, after he ended the earmarks, put $48 million back in the earmarks after he killed all those programs for programs to work with children in our communities. He put $48 million, like he did in the 90s, back in the budget, and also gave Friends over $500 million worth of earmarks and contracts. His cronies, read the Washington Times today. Everybody go read it. It's there. He's been protected because the mayor was the front runner, but now it's time to talk about the real Vince Gray. Look at tomorrow's post about the DHS contracts that he misled and guided the Friends and ran us in front of the control board.
Councilman Barry, how does Vincent Gray, and this is a great point, how does he do any better than what the Fenty administration has done for crime in the city?
It's a marked difference. In 2006, 65% of the people in the District of Columbia didn't feel safe. They didn't feel safe in their homes, didn't feel safe on the streets, didn't feel safe in their businesses. School kids didn't feel safe in school. That was a survey that was done by 400 or 500 people on that. And today, even though murders are down all over the country, he can't claim credit for that. They're down all over the country, got a good police chief. But people don't feel safe. Vince Gray will make a marked difference by getting people to the point where they're participating in their neighborhoods. They will feel safe and will be safe. They will feel safe in their schools, in their businesses, feel safe in their church. We have churches under Adrian Fenty's leadership. Churches being robbed. He didn't have anything to do with that now. They didn't have anything to do with that. But I'm saying that is the kind of thing that Vince Gray is going to do, is a marked difference about that. He's not going to blame other people.
Ron, is that the point here?
It's
not the diagnosis, it's the bedside manner?
Vince Gray. Well, police officer supporting Vince Gray, the FOP.
We have an 80% approval rate of our police chief, and the police officer, Mr. Branham, he wants to get rid of the police chief. And Gray would not publicly say that he's going to keep Chief Lanier. This man misleads people. He won't answer any questions. He won't tell the truth. And the people do not know what they're getting. I think every Washington, D.C. citizen has the right to know who Vince Gray is. And right now, they don't know. They don't know about DHS. They need to get it. They don't know about what he did with the $500 million that he gave his friends, and he's ran this whole campaign off of cronyism. Do you know how it felt for me to see my grandmother crying when she woke up and saw
argument kind of
a commercial?
falls hollow a little bit after this
Brian, let's put this in perspective. The whole campaign is about Adrian Fenty's record and what Vince Gray can do for the future. That's all. Not about
can't lose on his record.
But wait a minute. And so he has not been in the chief executive in the last 4 years as Adrian Fenty has been. And this issue of going back to the past is just whatever it is.
What about the flip-flop, man?
But the thing about this campaign, Vince Gray is running a positive campaign.
No.
He's not out with people like yourself, Ron, who are intimidating people, trying to do this and do that.
That's sad, Bird, that you would do that.
And so what we have here, the voters have to decide. I don't see how anybody could vote for Adrian Fenty when he sat around and let $50 million of D.C. taxpayers' money be taken, sat around $82 million of contract, not say anything about it. A lot of other mismanagement going on there. And when he has management by press conference, one final point is that
I need to make mine.
Adrian Fenty, when he came into office, there were $1.6 billion in our reserve fund. Took a long time to build it up. It's now, he spent $1 billion of that money. We almost on the verge of, not quite bankruptcy, but $700 million gap. So he has mismanaged the government in terms of by press conferences and the money when he said nothing about it. Can you imagine a big city mayor, the nation's capital, somebody steals $50 million from the government? He not saying anything about it?
Hey, Ron, let me give you the last word here, because your candidate is down 17 percentage points. And really my question is this: warranted or not, Mayor Fenty has this aloof, out of touch, padding his frat boys' personal bank accounts reputation that has been dogging him the last couple of years as mayor of this city, and it's really dragging down his re-election campaign. How does he shake that reputation these last 7 days?
Well, I asked the people to get the facts. There are 2 frat brothers that they're talking about, not 10, 20, 30. 2 frat brothers out of 50,000 contracts that go on in the city. Just like William C. Smith, who got $300 million that nobody's talking about and worked on Vince Gray's house. I think you should be more outraged about that when he voted on all these contracts of one of his friends. Nobody talks about that. But these 2 guys did the work, and they did a great job. Not saying it was right or wrong, it's under investigation, so I'm not taking any sides on that. But what I'm saying is the people look at his record, like Marion Barry said, there's no mayor in 3.5 years that has gotten things done like he has. Yes, he's made some mistakes, but like I said in the beginning, Marion Barry, we love you and you made mistakes and we forgave you. But you moved the city forward in some ways, and he's moved the city forward in a lot of ways. We have to just get the facts and stop getting all this fiction, rumors people put out. Just like Marion Barry said, we intimidating people. I have Carlos Gray on tape harassing people. I have people on tape.
That's opening another Pandora's box.
Brian, the last thing we need to look at.
10 seconds.
The voters will be looking for how Agent Fenty has performed, which has been poorly.
That's not true.
What Vince Gray will do going forward. And I maintain that those of us who are disaffected, why is it so many people who voted for Agent Fenty are now opposed to him?
Because people got bad information, sir.
Marion Barry, we appreciate your time.
And we're taking a lot of young people to the polls, and a lot of older people have converted.
Thank you both very much. We're going to try and open up the conversation here a little bit more. We appreciate you both for your time.
Love you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for Channel 5 for inviting us, enlightening the voters about what's going on. We really appreciate that.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you, MB. Love you, man.
Love you.
All right.
Appreciate it.